Welcome to all new Look Back in Amber, from exclusive interviews to interesting inside insights. Since 2010, we've been the best place to be for all things audio for us Newport County fans. Coming up in the next 70 minutes, it's a special edition with Mark O Brien. I'm Lamsie, and I'm looking to find out all about his book, A Game of Two Hats, and how he coped with two major operations, one in COVID times.
I'm Stephen, and I'm looking to find out about his early career and the great man's quest regarding mental well-being.
I'm Luke with your questions you kindly sent in on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll get his thoughts of that playoff disappointment and the ecstasy of the Great Escape.
Never miss out. Follow us wherever you find this podcast, or make sure you listen live at 2 p.m. on a Sunday and at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday after almost all League 2 home matches and the odd special edition like today. He's a club legend, he's got a book out, he scored that other goal in our Great Escape. Mark O Brien, how you doing? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, really good. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
So normally when we do this, it's really cool because we've got a kind of a set pattern now, because we've had loads of people come in. You were the first, and a slightly different variant. You came in on our Sport Hour show.
Oh, yeah.
And then we learnt then not to get the guests involved in every single aspect of it, just bring them in and get them to tell their story, which is what you're here for today. So slightly different to normal for our regular listeners to this podcast. I'm going to start off again straight away with the book out. Why? Why did you decide to do a book?
Well, it was after a while of, since I retired, I've had a lot of people who approached me about my story, about my life, about what I could do for others. I had a lot of journalists that would say to me, Mark, your life is a great story, and it's a story, and that's all they kept saying to me. It's a great story. It could help so many people. So somebody got in touch with me about doing a book when I was in the Midlands in Derby, and I thought to myself, do you know what? This might be actually something that it could be something. And as I started to do it, I agreed to doing it, and I started just to believe in other people's words, and I wanted my life to be portrayed out there now and put it all on a book to try and help other people, and that was my aim behind it.
So it says in the book quite clearly how you got into writing the book and how you got together with the publishers. So I'm going to leave that out for people to go and read a little bit about that one. The process for you. So how did that feel? How did you go about actually physically putting the book together?
It was scary. I was scared writing the book because I didn't know how people were going to take it. I didn't know how people were going to read it, and you want people to enjoy the book, you want people to resonate with the book, and you also want people to kind of hopefully learn from the book and something that might teach them and might help them. But as I said, it was great on some aspects. You're going over all different fixtures, you're going over different things that have happened in your life, and it was great, and it brings back so many great memories. But what I found difficult was, again, you talk about the first open heart surgery, and then to talk about the second one and the feelings that you went through it and the really bad times that you had at certain clubs I was at. So there were some really up and down moments, but I felt as though, like you say, putting it out there in a book is something that it was difficult, but I actually really enjoyed doing.
Because really weird, you're reliving all those experiences, and there's been massive highs and a couple of lows as well. Was it therapeutic, or was it quite hard going back through all those stories again?
I'd say it was a bit of both, really. It was really therapeutic because it was something where it's like I'm offloading all of my past, and it's like you get to read about my past, so you're looking at it on a page, so it doesn't feel as though it actually happened. It feels like a story, and I'm looking at it now, so like you say, it was off my shoulders. But again, like you say, it still was quite hard to go through certain times in my career that I actually felt really, really low, and to go through certain times in my life where I was really, really low, and you're trying to remember all the details, and some details that you try to forget you have to kind of relive again. So as you say, there was some form of therapy in it for me, but at the same time it was quite difficult to do.
Okay, we got some great questions from listeners, so we're going to carry on with our normal sort of vibe of doing things now. We will go back to the book loads throughout the rest of the conversation, and obviously we've got a few things to talk about the book, and also an appearance that you're making at Rodney Parade, so we'll do that a little bit later. Stephen?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about growing up. How did you first become aware of football, or how did you first fall in love with this great game called football?
Growing up, I was somebody that I was a typical youngster. I was out on the road, and I'd be skateboarding 1 minute, you'd play a game of rounders on the next minute, you'd be kicking a ball against the wall the next minute after that. But my brother, who's 2 years older than me, was playing football, and he was the fanatic of football. And I have a cousin who's 10 years older than me. He was a fanatic in football. So like you say, I was just following my brother's footsteps. So when my brother would go up and train with my local team, Cherry Orchard, I would just go up and train, and I didn't really think much of it. And then it was one time I went up, there was like an open day of training, but it was for an age group that was a year older than me. And my dad always said to me, he was like, look, you can go train, but if the manager says anything, you're not signing. And went up, I really enjoyed it. The manager wanted to sign me, and my dad like went completely mental at me. But again, it was something where I actually, because I really started to like it, and I was around 7-8 years of age, and I went back up the next year and signed for Cherry Orchard. And from there on, like I say, I was still doing the other things in between, skateboarding and just still living me kid life, but I was starting to enjoy football a little bit more. But what really got me into it was just following my brother's footsteps, and just because you've got that older brother who was into sport, and you just think, oh well, if he does it, I'll do it. So as I said, I was never a fanatic of it early on, but it was something that I just gradually grew on me.
Yeah, we've got a listener's question. First one is from Nick Horton. He says, you are a great role model for youngsters. Who was the person or sports person you looked up to growing up?
I always took a lot of advice off my dad. Like, my dad played football when he was younger. He never got a chance to move to England because his mum got ill, or his mum got sick, and he had to stay back and look after her and stuff like that. But I also look at it, and he was somebody that kind of moulded me. Like, he'd tell me when I was good. Well, he'd give me a pat on the back and say, well done, if I was good. And then that's when you knew you were good. But if I did things wrong, he was the first one to be down really hard on me. But like you say, it kind of made me the person that I am. And as well as that, I'd say football-wise, I'd say Roy Keane was somebody who was someone that I really looked up to, being Irish, because how I seen him on a field, how he held himself. He was a leader, tough in tackling, didn't take any kind of like stick from players. He didn't take anything. He just took it all in his stride. And as you say, he looked like the perfect role model. And taking that into my career, it was just something where, like you say, having people like that. But it was even going back to my dad. Like, I always wore black boots, because my dad always said centre backs only wear black boots. If you think you're going to wear a pair of coloured boots, you better play well. You put an extra pressure on yourself. So as I said, it was something that my dad
did
was
that
always
stay
like
throughout
that.
the career as well? Did you always wear the black boots right the way through?
For most of my career I did.
Yeah.
So anytime I wore a pair of boots, they were always black. But it's when I started to get a little bit older, and I started to kind of understand, well, look, it doesn't really care the colour of your boots, it's how you play. So it's kind of like one of them where at the time it was to take the pressure off yourself and not try and come across like you're big time, and not try and come across like that you think you know it all from a young age. So black boots it is, and you're wearing the right to wear coloured boots kind of thing. And I feel as though I kind of earned that right.
Yeah, my old man was the same with earrings. It's okay for my sister to have her ears pierced. No way was I allowed to have my ears pierced. It was just one in the day. Boys could only have one ear pierced.
Yeah.
Probably would have got the wrong one pierced. So it's good that didn't happen.
Yeah, so we've got another question from Dean Gould. He wants to know, where does your middle name Leo come from, and were your parents big fans of Leo Sayer?
I don't think they were fans of Leo Sayer. I wouldn't say that, but
I don't think we're any fans of Leo Sayer. Though
Yeah.
we have got one song on the system that we play. It's a bit of a remix thing that
Ah,
came
well,
out
then
a couple
you
of
played
years
a
ago.
remix.
So there you go. So you know,
but
there's redemption.
But like me middle name came from my granddad.
Okay.
So my granddad was Leo, and it was something where my mum gave me my middle name after her own dad. So
nice.
that's where it kind of came from.
Okay, Luke.
So you've talked about your journey into almost youth football. Talk us through the journey through your professional football. Did you start your career at Derby?
Yeah, so when I was 15, I went on a couple of trials at different teams in England. I went to Liverpool, Man City, Blackburn, and I was so close to signing for Blackburn. And then Derby County came in like last minute, and they kind of said they want you over for a day. So I flew over on a Saturday morning. I played with the under-14s on a Saturday afternoon, scored the winner. We won 3-2, and I flew home that night. And that was the first introduction to Derby. And they kind of got on the phone straight away saying, look, we want to have him over for a week. We want to see what he's like in the training ground. So I flew over for a week. And I was only 14 at the time, and I was training with their academy side, the under-18s. But they just kind of threw me in at the deep end, see how I'd react. And
because this was the interesting thing in the book, you didn't go in with the 14s up or the under 16s. You went straight into the under 18s, and you didn't know.
No, so it literally went straight in with the under 18s, and I remember I got pulled after 2 days from their academy manager, and he said to me, "You're doing really well, like keep her up for the rest of the week." But he said, "Do you know who you're training with out there?" And I was like, "No." I said, "Like they not like my age?" He said, "No." He said, "You're with lads that are like 4 or 5 years older than you." I was like, "All right." And he said, "You're not standing out." He said, "You're looking good." And I was like, he said, "Just keep that up for the week." He said, "You won't have an issue." So again, I think what took me to Derby was it just felt like a home from home. Like that was the biggest thing to me. Like leaving home is always quite difficult, regardless at the age of 15. But because Derby just felt so comfortable, they made me feel welcomed. You felt as though you were wanted, and that feeling of want overpowers anything than going to a Man City, a Liverpool, and all these different things. That it makes you feel as though I've got an opportunity here. And Derby just felt like one big great opportunity. And I flew over when I finished my GCSEs in school, and once I flew over, that first season was I played for the under 16s until I was able to register at 16. Then I played for the under 18s, and then just after Christmas I played for the reserves, and by the end of that season I make my debut. And that is something that, as you say, it was like what dreams are made of, and it was never expected, but as you say, it was that was my early introduction into professional football.
Who was your debut against?
Debut was, we played Watford away at Vicarage Road, and I remember the manager told me he was going to start me in that game, and the reason he didn't start me was because he said I'm only 16, I only just turned 16. So he played Rob Hultz and Lewin Nyatanga centre backs, which Lewin Nyatanga is a centre back but Rob Hultz is a striker. So I remember they were 3-0 down at half time, and I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, this is like, it's great just to be part of it. Like I didn't speak to anybody, like I was just real nervous. And it was after about 58 minutes I got turned around and said, "Yeah, Mark, you're going on." So he said warm up, and my warm up as a 16-year-old, like I was like a deer in headlights. I was just standing there thinking, what do I do? I just stretched one hamstring and jogged back. I didn't know what to do. And I remember standing there and Nigel Clough just going, "Do what I do." He said, "Do what defenders do." He said, "Kick it and head it, enjoy yourself." And that was it. And once I ended up going onto the pitch, Lewin Nyatanga came off, who was the centre back, and Rob Hultz was the centre back next to me, and he just turned around and said, "You're the defender, you tell me what to do." And then it was like instinct took over, and I was just like I was playing back at Cherry Orchard, I was playing in the academy again. It just took over, and you were just doing exactly what the manager wanted you.
Where did you go then after Derby? Where was that next step for you?
After Derby, with everything that's happened there, I ended up going to, in my last season at Derby, Steve McLaren came in, and I ended up going out on loan to Motherwell. So I went to Motherwell for a season, which again was something that, because Derby was such of a comfort zone for me, it was quite surreal to kind of go there. I never expected to leave Derby, because you don't understand what the football kind of bubble is like. You're in that bubble of Derby, and you don't realise there's a bigger world out there. And I ended up going to Motherwell, and as I said, I loved every minute of it, because I met new teammates, I met new players, I met new management, and it was something where I went up there on everybody's dream to, as an Irish lad, to sit there and go, well, you get to play against Celtic. And that's all that I had in my head at one stage, thinking, you know what, I get to play against Celtic, I might get to play games, and I might get like different things that are happening. And it surprised me. Scottish football really, really surprised me. It was something where you don't hear enough coverage of it, because you only know Celtic and Rangers, but it's a much higher standard than people give it credit for. There's a lot of quality up there that you do, probably me coming from Derby, take for granted a little bit. So I did find it difficult in certain games and whatever, and because I had the label of Derby County on my back coming up there was a bit of pressure on it, but I just enjoyed it. They made me feel just as welcome, and like I say, it was a great move.
Because in the book, did you mention that there's a massive gulf between Scottish football, between the top teams and probably the low ones in the league? Was that mentioned?
Yeah, it's like the only way I describe Scottish football is like, I would say the Championship, League 1 and League 2 all mashed into one league. because it's like you play 1 week, you play against Ross County, who are a decent enough side, but you could class them as a League 1 or a League 2 side. And then within the space of a week, you're playing in front of 65,000 people at Celtic Park. And that kind of jump is like, it kind of messes with you. And as you say, like, you have your Aberdeens, you have your Dundee Uniteds and all teams like that. But again, like you say, it's all mix and match. But that's where you get so surprised with some of the quality to different things. But again, like I say, it was a great experience that I look back on. That was just another thing to look back on.
So then after Motherwell, you went to Luton Town. Talk us through your time there.
I would say my time at Luton was probably one of the most difficult times I've ever had in football. Like, when I went there, John Still was the manager, and like I thought to myself that we had like a big bulk of players. There was 33 of us. Like, there was like there was a lot of players, new players signed. And I remember John Still was just basically rotating his squads through cup games, FA Cup games, league games, all of these different things, and he just kept chopping and changing players until he found his right thing. And I remember I got in 1 or 2 games, and we played against Stoke in the League Cup. We played against Bristol City in the League Cup, and then also we played against Portsmouth in the league, and I ended up adopting this centre midfield role that John Still thought I could play in. So I was playing, so I never really took much notice. I was happy doing what I was doing, like, and it wasn't just me that was interchanging in between squads. There was a lot of us doing it. And then once John Still left and Nathan Jones came in, that's where I'd say my world fell apart. And it was quite difficult, because when a new manager comes in, you normally see it as a clean slate. You have an opportunity to try and impress. You might get a game and a couple of minutes to maybe show what you can do, but you always get given that opportunity. And that was the one thing I never got given. I never got given a chance to go out and play, and then to maybe show what I can do or what I can't do. And if I went out and messed it up for myself, I always hold my hands up and say, well, then I can always look back and I go, well, at least I had an opportunity and I messed it up for myself. But the fact I never got given that opportunity was something that always kind of niggled at me, to think there's something not right here. And the minute he come in, as I say, I wasn't in any squads. Every single week I'm getting messages from people at home and ex-teammates saying, are you injured? How come you're not in the squad? Did you fall out with the manager? Did you do this? Did you do? And I was like, I haven't done anything. And it was the first taste in my career of the other side of football that nobody speaks about, the harsher side of football, to where you can just get disregarded and pushed to the side like you never existed.
It's really clear in the book that it feels that you never got a proper explanation of why you were not playing.
Yeah, and that's what I felt like. All I ever got told, it was business. And that feeling of it was, when you get told it's business, then what are you supposed to do?
But it's not enough, is it?
No.
If I turned around to these guys and said, listen, look, you're not on the show this week, it's just business, that's not enough. That's not enough for me to tell someone Luke's age that he's not on the show and not give a reason why it's business.
Yeah, and I've always looked at it that way. Like,
so I got a bit angry in the book at that point.
Yeah, trust me, I still get angry at it now. But no, but I also, like, I've always looked at it that way, where if a manager comes to me and he said, look, you're not what I'm looking for, then fair enough. If a manager came to me and gave me the opportunity and started me in a game or brought me on in a game and I made mistakes, then I can hold my hands up. But the fact that I get told it is just business and I'm training each day, and then as that season was starting to come to a close, I went out on loan to Southport, which Dino Marmaria was the manager. So then I went out to get 7 games on the false pretenses that I'm going out to get fit to come back and hopefully play. And the fact that, again, I came back after playing 7 consecutive games with Southport, who again were in a relegation battle that we kind of escaped from that. Then I come back to Luton full of confidence, thinking I've played a couple of games, I feel fit, to then travel to games and be 19th man and not play, and then travel to another game and be 19th man. I was just sitting around thinking, well, this isn't good enough for me. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Did you ever get an explanation?
I never got an explanation. Like I say, it was literally the whole thing of saying this is just business, and that is all that I was ever told. And again, that season comes to an end. You come back the following season and you get told your squad number's gone and you're on a transfer list, and you're sitting there on the first day of pre-season thinking, well, where do you go from here?
As you read the book, I think everybody's going to have moments where they can relate to it, or personal moments tied into your story. I haven't gone through that as such. I was working in a place where, myself and my then partner, we were the golden children. We used to work this far away from each other, which is great for radio, and a better meter apart away from each other, and we just couldn't do anything wrong. And then suddenly one day it felt that, and we didn't have a management change. It just felt that we couldn't do anything right, and that's why I really, really kind of felt that bit of the story. I think that's the good thing about the book as well. When you read it, I think you can really identify to it. Can I take you back to Cloughie then, because gave you your break in football, also wrote the foreword as well. Talk to me about Cloughie.
Do you know what? He's the only way to describe him is he's like one of very few in football who is a very loyal man. He's a gentleman, like you say. He's one of your kind of typical managers where you do right by him. He will do anything and put himself out of the way for your kind of success. He will help you through anything, and as you say, like managers have like their players that they like and don't like, but he always took a liking to me, and I always look at it and go, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had a career. If it wasn't for him giving me my debut and taking that opportunity, then I don't know where I would have been. If it wasn't for him giving me a 3-year deal when I was going through open heart surgery, well then I don't know if I would have been able to get back fit in time to try and prove stuff again. If it wasn't for him who was phoning me family and making sure my family are okay and making sure I'm okay going through the open heart surgery, like there was just there was so much more an element of like care, and I felt like he cared, and it made you want to get back fit and play for him. It made you want to play for his team, and as I said, he was brilliant. Like, don't get me wrong, he was always very harsh on me, and he was very harsh on his players that he wants the best for. So like you say, I needed to have a certain talk from certain like senior lads to say the reason why he's being so harsh on you because he wants the best for you. He knows you can do better. Whereas when I was younger, you hear the harshness coming out of me, you think he hates me. Like, everything I do, it's just wrong in his eyes. I can't do anything right. But it meant he was just trying to push me and keep pushing me to do the best and to do the right things. And once he felt as though, and once he could see that you were learning, once he could see you were learning from your mistakes, then he knew that you were trying. And that's what he wanted from his players. He wanted you to know that you're putting your time and effort into learning and trying what he's actually telling you to do. And like I say, he's someone that I can never speak any more highly of than say that he was someone who probably saved me life.
When I come back to that bit in a second, you also said in the book as well that you weren't aware of his dad, which I wasn't into massively football growing up. My thing was swimming. I could swim, and that's what I did. But everybody knew who Brian Clough was. Have you ever seen Damned United, the film?
Yeah, like so I seen Damn United the film and different things, but being in Ireland, you don't know about Clough, Nigel Clough, Brian Clough, and all stuff like that. Being in Ireland, you're not aware of it. Like my dad would have been, and other people in that generation would have been, but I never knew anything about it. And like I say, when Nigel Clough was my manager, I've had like old Liverpool fans that are back home in Ireland saying to me, "Do you know he used to play for Liverpool?" Yeah. And I was like, "Did he?" Like, it was just things that I was unaware of, like the naivety of it, really. But then, like you say, the longer you're there, the more stories you hear and different things. And then I watched Damned United, and I can see the characteristics between Nigel and what his dad is portrayed to be and different things. And you've seen interviews of his dad, and I'm like, two of them are exactly the same. Like, you can see where he's picked it up from and stuff. So, like you say, like I'm much more aware of it now. Yeah,
it's brilliant at the time that you didn't have that whole awareness that me not being in football had. So you're at Derby and you're being monitored, which is what doesn't happen to normal human beings, and they find the heart problem. It's in the book. Just again, walk me through that moment where you're just out there playing football, then someone comes up to you and says, "Hang on, Mark, what happened next?"
Yeah, so it was coming back into pre-season after the season I made my debut. So as you say, I was 16, made my debut. You come back the next season thinking, hit the ground running. This is gonna be like the next step, and everybody's coming back with me on a pedestal that I'm gonna kick on and do amazing things. So then we get our routine heart scans, and I remember we were all in the training ground, and each scan were getting done. I remember I got my scan done, and the doctor walked out, grabbed the physio, and the two of them came in and shut the door. And I remember I was just laying there thinking, is everything okay? And they said, look, you've got a minor leak in your aortic valve. And I said, okay. And they said, yeah, they said, it's nothing to worry about. They said people can live with these on a daily basis and it won't ever affect them until later in life, so it won't be for another 60, 70 years you won't need an operation. But he said it's just something to keep an eye on while you're in sport. So I just took it as, okay, when you hear 60, 70 years, you think there's going to be absolutely nothing, like football will be finished by then. So then as time went on, we were starting to wear like heart rate monitors, we were starting to wear GPS vests and different things. And when I started wearing the heart rate monitors, like by the end of a session, like the fitness coach would read out all the heart rates of what your average is and what your max was and all these different things. And my average was 203 and my max was like 221 or something like that. It was something scary. And the fitness coach looked at it and he said to me, well, Mark, maybe you're just working harder than everyone else. And I thought, well, I'm finishing like the middle to last of every last run and my heart rate is twice as high as everybody else's. So they kind of married it up and went like, and put two and two together to go, it could be this and it could be that. Let's like ask some specialists. So they sent the data over to some specialists with the scan. So then the specialist had a look at it and said, Mark, look, you probably won't need an operation for another 40, 50 years. Everything should be alright. It looks like it's in a stable enough condition, so I thought fair enough. And then again, but he said, just to be sure, he said, we want to see your heart functioning, so we'll send you for an MRI scan. So I went for an MRI scan, and then the MRI scan came back, and in between this I'm doing little bits of training again, and then the MRI scan came back. Me and the physio again were there, and he sat us down. He said, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really badly like bleeding or leaking into your heart, 1 being like normal, then he said, okay, he said yours is a 7 or an 8. So they turned around and he said, yeah, it looks like it's progressed a little bit. So I was like, okay. So he said, but you won't need an operation for another 20, 30 years. So I went from 80 years, and after a couple of weeks I'm down to 20, 30 years, and I thought, well, 20, 30 years, I'll be 36, nearly 40, football's finished. And that's all that kept going through my head. But he said, we'll send these results to a surgeon. He said, we'll see what their expert opinion will be. And I got sent to a surgeon. So a couple of weeks had passed, and I ended up going to the hospital. So my mum, my dad and the physio, we all went to the hospital together. And I'm sitting in a room just exactly like this. The doctor came in, and when the doctor came in, he literally just walked past me with a model heart in his hand, put it down on his desk, and then in his left hand he just picked up the heart and goes, right, Mark, he said, your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be, and if you don't have the operation done this year, you're gonna die. And it was that moment where like I sat and thought, they can't be speaking to me. And then my family were kind of sitting there thinking, what's that going on right now? So like everybody was in like quite like shocked. But even me, I just didn't know how to take it. Like I've never had somebody tell me you're gonna, like, you should be, like, you're gonna die. And that was something that like kind of, it just felt surreal. And the more he spoke, he turned around and he spoke and he said, look, what you have is, he said, you have a bicuspid valve, which means you have 2 leaflets instead of 3. Your valve is leaking quite badly. Your heart is at the swelling up, and he said it's not going back down to normal size. And he said what will happen is, he said one day you could wake up, you could walk up a flight of stairs. He said you could be in brushing your teeth, it could be anything in a house, and he said just like that, and clicked his fingers and said that could be you. So then I turned around, and being 16, I just asked him, can I still play football? And that's kind of the naivety that I had. That's where the love of football came in. I was just like, can I play football? And it's when he hit me with, Mark, you'll be lucky to play down the park with your friends, let alone playing professionally anymore. He said, maybe you'll never play professionally again. So I kind of like took that hard, because I made my debut the season before, and now the next season I'm getting told I'm never going to play again. So it was quite difficult to take. But he gave out the procedures of a metallic valve. I could get a pigskin valve, and I only asked, I was like, well, what's the best version, like what will give me the best chance of playing? And he said the pigskin valve. He said the pigskin valve will be, he said, a year to a maximum of 5 years. He said, but because you're in sport and it's going to constantly be working, he said you'll be lucky to get a year out of it. He said, and maybe your fitness will never get back to playing professionally. But he also said you can give it a go, but there's no guarantees. But if there is a guarantee, it'll be a year to 5 years, because he said we had a gymnast in who had the same operation as you, and she her valve failed within 18 months. So he said there's no guarantee on this. And I said, right, I said, I'll have that one. And that was all that I said, I'll have that one. And they said, are you sure? Are you sure you want to take it? And I said, look, I don't, like, and at 16 I still made the decision, and I've always said it, I never wanted to look back with regret. And I said, if I don't do it for the sake of going, there's a half a chance of doing it, I know I'll look back and regret. That I've always said at the age of 16 that I'm going to give it one go for football, see how that goes, and then I'll never look back with regret. I'll always look back and go, well, at least I tried.
Because the metallic one, I guess that would have been career ending.
Well, the metallic one is the one that I've got now.
Yeah.
So that would have meant that being on blood thinners for the rest of my life, and means that you can't play contact sport on blood thinners. So, as I said, that was the only real option that I had, and as you say, from 16, like I say, it kind of grew me up really quickly. Like, I made that decision of thinking, well, look, I'm going to give it one go for football, and anything after that is going to be a bonus. And then if it goes within a year, I'm okay with that.
Because I think at 16, we don't know our limits at that age, do we? We're just living life and having fun, and in your case, playing football. And you probably have people that have sadly passed away around you, but death isn't right in your face, is it? That's at 16. I suppose football was the great thing in your life that got you through it, but that's a hell of a thing to happen to a 16-year-old.
Yeah, I think because football was in my life, it was something that I was able to kind of bypass and not think too much of the death side of stuff, but actually just bypass and say, this is for football, so I'll do this for football, and when I get back okay from this operation, I'll be playing football, not understanding the severity of the actual operation, me just thinking, I'm going in to have the operation, but when I get out, I'll be back playing. Like, and that's all that I had in my head. And like I say, it served me well being 16 and naive, because it didn't hinder me. It made me like grow stronger and grow more in love with football than I ever had, because I thought, well, do you know what, this is what I'm doing it for. Now I'm back playing, I can breathe. Whereas I was told this by many people after, that every time I stepped onto a pitch, from club doctors to everybody going, they were all nervous for me, but I felt probably more relaxed that I was actually out living my dream. And that was the kind of the difference between it all, that football is the distraction that really helped me.
We're going to want to talk to you about loads about Newport County now, because we've got more questions about this than anything else from our listeners. Luke wants to take you through the Great Escape. Stephen wants to talk to you about Melbourne experiences. Let me start off by, again, setting the scene. You're at Luton. Again, please read the book, because it's just an unbelievable story. Not a great story what happened towards the end of Luton, was there? And then you get a chance to play for Newport County. Walk us through that initial connection.
Well, that initial connection came from Dino Marmaria from Southport. So Dino Marmaria was Graham Wesley's assistant manager. So at that time of not playing at Luton, I remember I reached out to Dino. It was around the Christmas time, and I said to him, I sent him a text saying, is there any chance you can get me in at Newport? And he texted me back saying, are you fit? And I said, well, I haven't played a proper game in about 12 months, but I said, other than that, I said, I've been training every day. I said, I'm fit. I said, I just need to play games. And then he just texted me saying, leave it with me and I'll get back to you. So I think at that Christmas time, I think they got beaten by Wickham away or Wimbledon away. They might got beaten, and I'm not 100%. And I think it was on a Boxing Day they got beaten. And he got in touch with me saying, are you fit? And I said, yeah. So then he texted me going, right, Graham Wesley wants to meet you on the Thursday or the Wednesday. So I was like, okay. He said, right. He said, so we'll meet you in this hotel and he'll send you over the text. So he sent me over the text, and I just thought to myself, like, right, I'm going to meet Graham Wesley. And Alan Sheehan, who I was playing with at Luton at the time, and I was staying in his house, I told him I'm going to meet the Newport manager, Graham Wesley. And obviously he's heard like some extreme stories about Graham Wesley and all these different things. He said, right, he said he's the kind of manager, he said, that if you're going to be playing for him, he said, you have to big yourself up. He said, you have to talk, like, if he says, do you want to be the best player in League 2, you have to tell him, no, you want to be the best player in the Premier League, you want to be the best player in the world. Because he's very big like on his psychology and his motivational side of stuff. So again, like, he was just big in it. He was just telling me what the do's and don'ts are. But he said, if he gives you a handshake, he said, shake his hand. If he asks you to do something, he said, you say yeah. He said, like, it's just, you have to like be confident with what you do. And at that point, like, I hadn't got any confidence, so I was just thinking, right, I don't know who I'm walking into right now, but I'm gonna have to try and put on a bit of a front. So I met him in a hotel in London, and he walked in and he looked me up and down, and he just kind of said, okay. He said, look, I'm Graham Wesley, and he said, and again, just looked me up and down and goes, right, So what can you do for Newport, and what kind of player are you? And I'm sitting there, and I just was telling him, look, I'll give you 100%. I'll kick everything. I'll head everything. I'm probably known as an old-fashioned defender, I said, but I'm up for the scrap. I'm up for the fight, and all these different things. And he was he gave a background on himself, and the background that he was given on himself, he obviously had high thoughts for himself, which, as you say, that's the kind of background that I got from it.
I think, can I just say, the high thoughts he's got on himself, you have to read in the book.
Yeah.
Don't mention it. This is a massive tease for the book, because it's hilarious. I know a few Newport County fans, Stephen included, didn't feel that much warmth towards Graham Westerly and his tenure at Newport County. I know that you've got different thoughts on it, and we'll come on to that now. But yeah, please read the book, because it's hilarious.
Yeah, no, he has some really high thoughts for himself. But again, like I said, it was something where we had the meeting and everything that went back and forward, and he stood up to me and he gave me an ultimatum, and the ultimatum was, look, I can get you to play. I want you to play this Saturday. We're playing Stevenage away. He said, do you fancy it? And I said, yeah. I said, but I need to sort out my contract at Luton. I said, I've still got 7 months left, and there was this back and forward. He goes, we'll sort that right now. So like I say, it's in the book, and it's back and forward between things. So then it came to it where he stood up and he put his hand out and said, okay. He said, I'll see you on Friday. So without even thinking, I just put my hand out, shook it, and I said, yeah, okay. So then I had to go back all the way to Luton. I had to pack up my bags, travel to Newport on the Thursday night, be in training for the Friday. And again, once I got to Newport, we were training on the Friday. I didn't know there was 7 or 8, maybe 9 new lads in at that time. They all looked like they were a well knitted group, and we were over at Spitty on the Astro turf, and we just started to do this 1v1s, 2v2s, 1v1s, and proper leg work on a Friday. And I remember right at the end of the session, he said, right, everybody box the boxes, and we had to do them all in 9 sections. We had 12 of them to do. And after it, I'm thinking, my legs are killing me here. And all the other lads are thinking, oh, that was actually a light session today. So I was thinking, what have I got myself in for here? But again, I went out, and he showed a lot of faith in me, that he was open and honest with me, telling me that he didn't know much about me. He had to go off what Dino Marmaria taught me, and I was very lucky that he did take up on what Dino said. And as I said, I know everybody has their own opinions of me, but he was somebody who actually gave me an opportunity. He was someone who believed in me. He was someone that allowed me to play regardless of me not playing many minutes of football, or any football really, at Luton. He actually took me in, gave that belief, and put his belief in me that I could turn things around, and thankfully I did.
I've got a feeling that the next person's read the book. So this is on Twitter, or X as known as these days. Darsney26, did your training ground darts improve under Graham Westerly?
Yeah, they did. I would say they definitely did. It was something where we there's always a dartboard up and around the training ground and stuff like that, but there was a story about Mickey Demetrio actually getting a chance to play if he hit the bullseye, and he had 3 darts to hit the bullseye, and if he hit the bullseye, Graham Westerly was going to start him the next day. Mickey Demetrio 4 starts straight in the bullseye, and then he started him the next day. So it was something where we always just stayed back. We had good games of darts. But yeah, like you say, my darts have gotten even better now.
It's really weird, because when I read the question, because we've got no background to this, right? I thought they meant as in arrows, but I thought, because he made you work so hard on the training ground, did he mean the darting runs? But it's actually
I'd say it probably could be arrows. Yeah.
There you go. That's brilliant. So Graham Westerly, I think we all know what happened there, and then there's a period then where you're wondering who's going to come in next, and it turns out to be Michael Flynn. Yeah,
and at that point of wondering who's going to come in next, it was quite worrying for me again, because when I went to Luton, it was a manager change. When I went to Motherwell, it was a manager change. So all of these different changes of managers never worked out well for me. So I was quite lucky that Michael Flynn was still part of the coaching setup that's seen me the whole time that I've been in. So it kind of went in my favour that I was doing well at the time. So for him to step in as he did, he kind of kept things the same. And for him to keep things the same meant that I was playing in the team, meant that everything was just going to be as normal. But it was quite difficult at the time to see Michael Flynn as my manager, because it was only like a week, 2 weeks previous to that, he's playing centre midfield and I'm playing centre back. Or when we played Cambridge away, he's playing centre back next to me. So now all of a sudden he's your gaffer. And it was quite difficult in 1 or 2 games where we had a couple of variables back and forth, because like I just seen it as your first reaction when you're in that game mode is if someone says something to you, you kind of like say something back without realising who it is, and I'm just like, oh, that's the manager. I can't really be saying these things to the manager. But like you say, there was always that respect there, and there will always be that respect there, because when he brought in Wayne Hatswell, like that was another addition to the club that kind of got us on our way. And them two with Lenny Lawrence, they just went on from strength to strength. Like they just knew what we needed when we needed it, and they were just the perfect right blend for at that time when Graham Wesley left. Like they just calmed everything. They knew how fit we were, but they just relaxed everything. And the way that we kind of looked at it was just one game at a time. And I know it's very cliche in football to say one game at a time, but that's all we could do, because once the Premier League and what you see on Sky Sports News, once it doesn't have Newport County relegated, we always just had that small belief, well, you know what, let's go out next week and try and win. Let's go the next week and win, and just get a smile back on our faces, because I think the smile got taken away with a lot of Graham Wesley was the opposite, where if things weren't going so well, he'll train you harder, and he'll train you even harder, and when things are going well, you train even harder again, because then that must have worked the week before. So there was 2 different mentalities, but he came in at the perfect time, in my opinion.
Yeah, because at that point, what was it like playing with the man?
It was great playing with him, because like you say, he's someone who you could see Newport meant a lot to him. He was someone where, like you say, he's a Newport person. Like, he knew exactly what the place meant to him. He knows what the fans want. He knows what the area needs. He knows exactly what they want to see on a Saturday. And playing alongside him, like, you could see why he done well in his career, where he got to at certain places in his career, to then, as you say, he was at the back end of it, like going into his coaching side of it. But for when he stepped in, like, I think that, again, it was like kind of perfect recruitment of having Lenny Lawrence in there for a bit of backup and a bit of someone to lean on. But Wayne Hatswell was someone who was like the unsung hero in a lot of different things, because he is somebody who, again, the two of them bounced off each other very well, and I think they just had a perfect blend for exactly what Newport needed.
But a bit of a naughty question to throw in here, because we're going to switch to the other end of Newport County now. Do you think that James Rowbury could have done with that little bit of support, like a Lenny Lawrence style? Because we spoke about it on the show a lot.
Yeah,
I do believe he could have. Not gonna lie, I do believe that potentially he could, because what he wanted to do for Newport maybe was too much of an ask. He wanted to try and turn the place, let's say, more professional. He wanted to turn it into a more football-based like side, and which is all well and good and totally fine. But I think what Newport is and what Newport needs is it's League 2, it's rough and ready league, and Newport are a rough and ready team. You're never going to have the most amazing facilities, you're never going to have the most money, but what we always knew, and even when I played, we always have a lot of heart, we always have a lot of determination. We all play for the short, and when you get people in that are like willing to play for the short, you get the response from the fans, and that's how Rodney Parades becomes this fortress that nobody likes to come to, which again in this last year or so, it's turning back into that. So like you say, if you get people that kind of know it, understand it, accept it for what it is really, and add and implement your own little styles to it as you go along. So I do believe he probably could have done with that little bit of guidance, but he's a very driven young coach. He's a very, very driven, and I feel as though even if he did potentially have that helping hand, he had his vision and he went for it. And like you say, it's something that you can never fault him for going for the vision that he wanted for the place, because he had all really great intentions. Just unfortunately, it didn't work out for him.
I think everybody that I've spoken to wanted it to work. Really, really wanted it to work, and you know, it's he came in here and he was brilliant, and he was great with Luke that was doing the post matches even back then. Let's go back to pre-Great Escape then.
Yeah, so we've got another listener's question. Simon Rock is asking, what has been your most memorable experience at Newport County, and who is your hero past or present? So has it changed since you were younger maybe?
I'd say one of my most favourite moments at Newport, like, I know it's easy to say, like, is the Great Escape, because I think when you know the whole story behind the Great Escape, from the previous time that I had that season for the 6 months into the last 6 months, to the deal that I struck with Graham Wesley to play for Newport, where I wasn't even guaranteed a contract by the end of it, the money situation, there was so many things that all got wrapped up into that one situation, that for that goal to go in, even if it wasn't me scoring the goal, it would have still meant so much to me, because there was so much riding on it. It was like the spin of a roulette wheel. It was something where you look at it and you say, this is all or nothing. It literally is. This one game was all or nothing. And to be the person to score that goal, it made me feel that kind of, like this is the moment that I've always wanted in football. This is the moment that I've needed, because I struggled with confidence for a lot of time after Luton, and it kind of gave me that little bit of boost of confidence to say, like, I've actually done something really good here. Plus, it was my very first professional goal, like league goal, and there was just so much riding on it. And even to say, as an idol growing up, or once I got into football and started to understand it, I started to look more position specific for myself, and I was a Man United fan. Still am a Man U fan, but not as much since being in football. But Nemanja Vidic, who played for Manchester United, he was someone that I looked at and I thought, if there was ever a player that I want to be, or if there's ever a player that I could look at and say, that's me, would be him. He stuck his head in. He never cared about where his head went. He'd stick his head in where people wouldn't stick their feet. He'd make tackles. He was the defender for Man U. Like a Carlos Puyol for Barcelona, like just an actual defender, and loved defending. That's how I seen it. So growing up, like, and the more I stayed in football and the more you understand your position, the more I looked at Vidic and I thought, if there is a player, that's the player I want to be.
Yes, another listener's question. Alison is asking, what emotions were you feeling when you saved us from the Great Escape? And Lisa Betts, quite similar. What was going through your mind when you scored the winning goal that kept County up?
I went through so many emotions. It was the very first time I ever cried for football. Like I've never like really shed a tear, and you'd normally see players who shed tears and stuff like that, and you think, well, nah, that never happened to me. Like I don't really understand. Like, why would you shed a tear for your job, kind of thing? Like, that's just the mentality you have coming away. You've seen it. But I remember, like, the 6 months that was in it, like the draining, like the media attention, the 1-0 wins, playing on Rodney Perez's pitch, like everything, the emotion of the stadium. That last day of the season, seeing 7,500 people there, like scoring the goal, the referee blowing the whistle, like everything just came all at once. And I remember just falling onto my back, and everything of all the bad times that has happened, I thought, finally I've done something good. It felt as though this is my first ever good football moment, because I just felt as though I've had the ups and downs at other clubs, and I've had certain moments that have happened, but I finally felt as though I've done something good here. And I'll always look back, like you say, the Aguero goal last minute, and I've always looked at a moment where Robbie Brady for Manchester, for Republic of Ireland, he scored a last minute winner against Italy to get Ireland through to the quarterfinals of the Euros. And I remember I was sitting in a pub watching it, and Robbie Brady is somebody who I played alongside, like, from younger age groups, and I always thought I'd love a moment like that, like just a moment like that, I'd love it. And I finally got that moment, and I remember, like, Mickey, like, landed on top of me, and other people were getting on top, and I just remember holding them close, and I just started crying, because I just felt as though that emotion of the stress leading into that, the whole anxiety of it all, the pressures of it all, like there was a club riding on it, that if the club goes down, which I didn't know at the time, like you say, you don't know the whole extent of it, but you hear of the extent after that. There's so much emotion that went into that one game that it all just literally came out. Yeah,
it was. I can remember being in the stadium that day, and I hadn't long moved to Newport myself, and the emotion in that, I mean, there was grown men crying, hugging me for the previous 2 hours. They hadn't even spoke to me, and then they were like, as if they were like my best friend. And it's like, that game was like, wow, this is what it means to follow a football team, for it to mean something, and to live in a place, and to see how important that club is for this place. Yeah, it had a huge impact on me, to be honest, that day. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. But as I said, it's something that drew me into Newport. When you see how much it means to the place, and you see what it meant, and the extent and the severity of what that goal could have meant if it never went in, and all these different things. But when you can see 7,500 people and what that stadium can be like, and as I say, like there's been plenty of times where we've had that same atmosphere and we've had that same backing, and when that place, it's like there's just something special that always happens there, and it's like some atmosphere, and it's like electric, and the players feed off, and I know that the players feed off, and that's why when I do hear it even nowadays on a Saturday, I know it's going to do well for what's happening out there, because when you're getting our players like and you're trying to get them up, like our fans sometimes I don't think realise how much of an impact they actually have, because even when I played, it really willed me on just as much.
I remember getting all the volunteers back to where they needed to be after doing the warm-up for Newport City Radio, and popping on Soccer Saturday. And again, thank you for those memories as well, watching Jeff Stelling doing this thing. It was brilliant. We've got to mention Mickey's goal, because if we didn't, we're going to get told off, because we had a chat with Mickey, right? And, you know...
Yeah, he always has the same word with me, because he always walks out to me and goes, oh, that game must have finished 1-0. It definitely must have finished 1-0, because nobody remembers my goal. And I always just laugh and say, well, why would they? I said, what did your goal do? But
it's a high pressure penalty.
No, in all fairness to him, like I say, he scored some crucial goals leading up to all that. Even in the games previous, he scored against Crawley, scored a free kick against Yeovil, scored another goal after that. And then, like you say, the form that he was in, the partnership me and him had at centre back, without that goal, like you say, it doesn't give us that comfort blanket where you're going into probably half time at 0-0, because there was nothing really to separate two teams. Even though like most of the game is like a haze to me, and I've watched it back many times, but it's one of those games where it was going to take one mistake, it was going to take one little mishap, it was going to take something, and it was a big pressure penalty, like, and it was 20-30 minutes into the game. And as you say, he is somebody that just as much as myself, like, and I'll always say it like that goal and all the other goals that he contributed along the way were massive goals.
We knew that it was a bit tongue-in-cheek with Mickey, and I read the book and saw that you had that friendship there as well, which is why I put on social media, you know, the other goal, because it's just a wonderful moment.
Yeah, well, we know that, well, during your time at the club, we've had great pedigree in cup competitions, playing against the likes of Tottenham, Man City, Derby County last season. Before we look into the Premier League times, who were you supporting last year when we played Derby?
In all fairness, I wanted Newport to win, like 100% wanted Newport to win, but it was a game that game really affected me, because any time that I've been away from Derby, I always thought to myself, I'd love to play against Derby again. I would love it to be it. Like, any time we've had FA Cup draws when I was playing, any time we had League Cup draws, I always thought, get a game back at Pride Park, get a game down at ours, and I want to play against Derby again. So for that to actually happen and to still be involved, like, it did throw me back a little bit, and I'm seeing faces that I haven't seen like in a while, and I know I do make some travels back to Derby, but again, like, I wanted Newport to win. Like, I'd love if the game could have finished in a draw and both teams go through, but again, Newport is a team that is the next best thing close to my heart, just as much as Derby is, because Derby is somewhere where they helped me life at the age of 16. Newport have helped me life at the age of 27 in two of the most difficult times in my life, and them two, to try and separate the two of them, like, I'd do both an injustice for what they've done for me. But at that time, I work for Newport are my team, and I wanted Newport to win.
There we go. Yeah, cup matches, obviously you've played your part in some phenomenal games, whether that be beating Leeds, playing against Tottenham, beating Leicester. Do you have any memories of cup games? Yeah,
like, I loved every last cup game that we played in. And like, I'll always even remember the games where we've played Malden and Tiptree, where we played Wrexham, and all these different games that they were probably our more difficult games, because when you're going into the other games of a Leicester, a Tottenham, a Leeds United, Middlesbrough, Man Cities, you're not expected to win. So sometimes it gives you that little bit of an extra, well, nobody expects us to win, let's go out and enjoy ourselves, let's go out and make a good account of ourselves, because nobody expects anything else. And sometimes that less bit of pressure you get the better results from, because when you're playing against Malden and Tiptree, you're playing against Met Police, you're playing against Wrexham, you're expected to win. Like, you have to win these games, or else it's seen as a cup upset that the league side have been beaten by a non-league side, and they're the more difficult games. So I always felt in the time that I played in my period of playing that when we were the underdogs, we came into our own, like being the underdogs of the Great Escape. No one expected us to stay up, but we created that underdog story. And like playing against Tottenham, and you're seeing the likes of Harry Kane's and people like that. You play against Leeds United's, and again when we played against Middlesbrough and got them to a replay, and then when we went 2-0 up, and I remember the last 10 minutes of game, and the Newport fans are chanting Manchester City, we're coming for you, and like you hear it loud and clear, and you're kind of sitting there thinking, this can't be right. Like, and you have a Manchester City coming down to our stadium, and again seeing their lineup and seeing them, like I remember going out and being the captain, and you're going into the side office like to do the captain's talk and the handshakes and different things, and I just remember David Silva walking out, and I'm standing there in a room as a referee speaking, and I'm thinking, he's won a World Cup, 2 European Championships, and like I'm standing next to him. Like 9 times out of 10 you'd be asking for an autograph, or you'd want a picture for your social media and stuff, but this time like you're thinking, I'm actually playing against this fella. So once we seen their lineup, and one of the funny things is like, and I remember I've said it in the book as well, like the stories behind that Man City game, like where we're in the changing rooms and everybody's kind of laughing and joking, thinking, I wonder if Man City are worrying just as much about us than we are about them, like, and just like you say, taking the pressure away from it and people not expecting anything. I remember even when I was going to get my haircut that week, I'm having people come over to me and go, oh, good luck against City, just try and keep it below 10. And you're just thinking, great. And they played against Chelsea the week before that, and they beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge 5-0. So you're thinking, well, what chance does little old Newport have? But again, my always belief in every single thing that goes on at Rodney Parade is, once we get our fans in, once we get the atmosphere going, and once we get that something, there's always something special that will happen. And I'll always look back and go, we should have been 1-0 up in that game.
It's going to be another one of my favourite elements of the book. So again, please read it, because that whole story, because I forgot you were captain for a minute, and the book reminded me of that. And then I didn't realise that, because it was you and Wayne, wasn't it, going out to get the team sheets, I think. Yeah. Read it. You have to read it. I'm going to leave it there because it's just a great story. What I would say about the Man City game, I was fortunate to be out here, because I think they used the marquee for hospitality that day. So we kind of based our operations here in the Neon, and just it felt like Newport County were a Premier League team that day. The colour, the noise, the atmosphere, it was just, I will never forget that moment of being around all that colour and all that noise. It's just an amazing footballing day for the city. So,
yeah, like we absolutely loved it, and the only way I'm able to describe it to people is that, like, when we had fans turn up on a Saturday, we could have 4,000 or 5,000 fans there. And I remember we were coming out for a warm-up, and there was 4,000 or 5,000 fans just for us warming up. I know they were there to see Man City warm up and all the stars, but to jog out into that atmosphere for a warm-up really got you like blood flowing. You start thinking, this is a massive game. They built extra stands behind either goals, and like you say, there was just that kind of feel about the place where you thought something could actually happen tonight. And I get that people are there, but we knew once the atmosphere is there, there's always one part that I do remember in the game, and I don't really I don't know the name of the fan obviously, but I remember I was over on the right hand side and the ball went out for a throw in, and I remember a fan just shouting on saying, get closer to them, and I kind of looked over in like just a split second and thought to myself, get closer. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like, what do you not think we're trying to do? But again, like you say, that day itself was just, there was a buzz about the place again. There was just that feeling of, we could actually do something here, and it's only us who believe it. But once it's like I always believe, is that once we believe it, it can actually happen.
And there was that really beautiful stat, wasn't there, that we knew that they'd beaten Chelsea 5-0, and you mentioned that in the book as well. That stat that no one had held Man City to a 0-0 at half time all season in the Premier League was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I remember it came out on Twitter not long after that. I think we were like the 4th or 5th team in Europe to keep Man City to a 0-0 at half time, and that was coming up against, that was like, I think there was Liverpool, there was AC Milan, there was different teams like that, and then you'd have like the little Newport badge next to all them names, that we were like the 4th or 5th team in Europe to do that to Man City. It was incredible.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I don't want to come off a high, but we have to talk about a little low, because then the following seasons, then great to get back to Wembley. It's almost becoming our second home, wasn't it? And then you did know at that point it was going to be your last game. and it was you mentioned in the book again. Just talk me through the difficulty of playing at Wembley, the enjoyment of playing at Wembley, and then that cab, which again I think we all agree was not right.
Yeah, I would say not right, but again, it was like the highs and lows of football. Like I was at a club that I loved playing me football. Like I was back enjoying myself, and I was back doing what I loved doing, and I had like the backing of the fans that were enjoying what I do. And again, like to be a captain going through playoffs and different things, like you just felt as though that one season, there was just something special about that one season that I thought we could do this. And I remember like we went to play Mansfield, and their players are saying, well, we have yous, like they basically booked themselves already in at Wembley thinking that they've made it. So then to get through on penalties away at Mansfield, like that atmosphere after that game was unbelievable enough as it was. And then to know we were playing Tranmere in the final, we done well against them in the season. Like we beat them once and we drew, but we never conceded a goal. So you're thinking we have a fair good chance in this final. And even when I think back to the final, like we were the better side. Like they had one or two half chances, but I felt as though we had one or two more clear cut chances than them. Should have had a penalty. Like there was so much to the game where I thought, no, this could go all the way, and maybe we might just get it on penalties. Like this is something that it's going to take a mistake or something to happen for this game to kind of turn a different way. But unfortunately I was playing against a clever striker, and my first yellow card, I'll always like debate it with anybody that the first yellow card was never the yellow card. It was the first foul that I had in that game, and the referee to give me a yellow card on basis of saying there's been too many fouls so far, so I'm taking the fall for it. So I just thought, well, okay. But when you play against clever strikers, sometimes in the heat of a moment they get the better of you, and I have looked back to this so many times, and I know I tried to put my arm around him to try and grab him and to try and stop him from running in behind. But in that moment of doing that, a clever striker, he's trapped my arm under him, he's kicked his legs backwards, both of us have fallen down, and yeah, it looks like I've dragged him down, but I've put myself in that position, so I know it's fallen on me, that if I didn't put myself in that position I wouldn't be in a foot race. So I knew I made a mistake. So when I seen the referee come over and give me that, in the heat of the moment I was more frustrated. But I remember I was sitting in the tunnel and I'm watching the game, and when I seen them scored in the 118th minute, I just stormed off to the change room. I sat in the physio part of the Wembley changing rooms. I put a towel over my head and I just started crying. I just burst out into tears, because it was a moment that, like, I've had like lows in football, but that kind of low was something I never felt before. I've let so many people down here. Like I've let my family down, I've let all my teammates down that we've worked so hard to get to Wembley. I've let the management down, I've let the fans down. Like I felt as though I've let down this whole place, and everybody's gonna hate me, and it was never shed a tear to try and find the sympathy. It was actually genuine emotion that I felt like I really felt as though I've let so many people down, and I didn't know how to take it. Like, and I always felt as though like I'm strong enough mentally to take a lot of stuff on, but this was a different side that I never really felt before. So when that happened, and you don't really speak to many people after the game, and you have the certain other people coming up going, look, you've been brilliant all season, like don't worry yourself, these things happen. But you don't see it that way. You just think, we should be lifting the cup now, we should be lifting the trophy. If I didn't get sent off, I probably would have been in that position, I could have headed it clear. Like there's so many things that go on in your head, and I'm just blaming myself. I'm blaming myself for it. Like it was my fault that we didn't go to League One, and that's the way that I've always seen it and took it on my own shoulders. But again, I think that's the beauty of football as much as the harsh realities of football, that you have another season to go on again. And the following season was something that I didn't realise was going to be my last season. And that sometimes, like you say, I'm glad I didn't kind of live in the lows, because I felt as though in the time I did play for that half a season before COVID hit, before the operation, and before I found out about the valve leaking again, I actually felt as though, do you know what, I'm playing really well here. Like I'm doing really well. Like we had 10 wins in a row. We had 7 clean sheets. Like it was the best start of a season that Newport have had in so many years, and like we were already, like we were kind of bouncing back from our Wembley hangover, as people would call it, to then go, no, we're in for it now. Like we're ready to kick on. And as you say, COVID came about and kind of put a stop to that. But yeah, I never thought Leighton Orient away would have been the way to kind of end my career, but like you say, these things happen.
Yeah, it feels from reading the book that the journey got a bit tough after that, and we're going to go into some little bits of it now. But I'm guessing now that with people talking to you, teammates, because you went back to Dublin almost straight away after the playoff final, didn't you? Who helped you initially pick up those pieces and say, "Come on, Mark, this is what happens in football"?
Again, it was my dad. I remember on the same day when I was in the changing rooms with the towel over my head and I was crying, somebody came down the tunnel and went in and asked and said, "Mark, somebody's waiting by the dugout for you." So I walked outside and it was my dad, it was my old Cherry Orchard manager from when I was a kid, and the Derby scout who brought me over to Derby, who's a family friend, and three of them were standing there, and I just burst into tears, and I just gave my dad a big hug and burst into tears. And my dad was like, "Look, that's just football." He said, "These things happen," he said, "but I'm proud of you." And the others were saying, "Mark, you were playing brilliant, you were robbed today," all like the stuff that you want to hear, like that they think you want to hear. But once I kind of heard my dad say that, going, "Do you know what, you've done yourself proud," he said, "You made me proud," he said, "You've got nothing to drop your head about," he said, "Keep your head high." And now it was hard for me to keep my head high because I still had to go back into a changing room and face my teammates, but once I knew I kind of had my dad in my corner, that made a massive difference to me. And again, like, my dad is a very big realist, where it's kind of like he turned around and says, "Look, things happen in football, people get sent off, people get injuries, decisions don't go your way, that's football, that's why people love it." And when you do kind of understand it that way and you just go, well, look at these things happen, like I got done by a more cleverer striker at the time. He put me in a vulnerable situation, and I paid the price for it. And that's just how football is sometimes. So sometimes it's like you can live in it and you can keep yourself down and not bounce back from it, and that can be the ending of you. Or you can make a point and go, okay, that's over with, on to the next one. And that's thankfully the way that I did.
Another story in the book, which again I'm going to tease a little bit and tell people to go and read the book and read it, but Michael Flynn does quite a cute thing on one of the first meetings back.
Oh yeah, when we get back into the change room and then we're all back in League Two, he said, "We just need to." He said, "That's your fault." He said, "That's your fault." Literally,
you can hear Flynn in his voice, can you?
Yeah.
If anybody's ever spoken to Flynn, you can hear how he said that.
We had like the beginning of season meeting of League Two. This is what we need and this is what we expect, and you can thank him for why we're not in League One, and it's his fault why we're not. And as you say, it's kind of one of those where they just aired it there and then. You kind of have to take it on the chin. You take it for what it is. You have people giving you a little bit of banter, and like you say, that is the beauty of football. You just have to keep rolling with it and move on.
Got a couple of listener questions. I think they all tie into the same thing, so we'll take one at a time, but I think they're all going to really be around the same thing. So Alison Davis has sent quite a few questions in, so we split them up a little bit as well. Also, she's sent us a photo because her daughter is one of your biggest fans, and there's a photo of you and the daughter and a few other people that's pride of place on her bedroom wall, and that's the effect that football can have, isn't it?
Yeah, it is crazy, but like you say, you do have to understand that you are these kind of people that are in a role model situation for others.
I've got a picture of Luke up on my bedroom wall for exactly the same reasons.
Oh, lovely.
It's on the dartboard, so again, if you can give me any tips, I'd be reading. Alison says, how did you cope with the news that you would never play professional football again?
It was a shock. I didn't really know how to cope with it. Again, like, I know I've said it enough now, but like, I cried. Like, it was the first thing, but I was able to put retirement to the side a little bit because I was having open heart surgery. So it wasn't like I had to retire because of an injury and different things. You have so much time to think about. Like, I had to change my mindset into thinking, right, I have to go through open heart surgery again. So me retiring, I can leave that. Like, that's fine for now. But I cried. I just knew I couldn't play again, and I think that was the turning point of where majority of struggles came. And like, I really struggled taking on the advice of, don't worry yourself, like, you'll have better things coming your way. Like, I just zoned out the fact that I had to retire. I put a post out there and didn't think people would pay attention to it, and before you know it, it's on the internet, it's all over Sky Sports News, it's on this, and I just thought, oh, this is a bigger situation than I thought. And I remember having to phone Flinny and that phone call that we had, and as you say, that part's in the book as well. So there's so many different feelings that I felt, but the first emotion was I burst into crying, but then kind of came away from that to think, actually I need open heart surgery again, and then that became my concern.
Because I guess this time, where you didn't really get any feelings or any effects of what was going on with your heart, this time you did.
Yeah, so normally like the feelings that you're supposed to get was feeling dizzy, feeling tired, feeling lethargic, feeling like breathless, all these different things that I was supposed to feel at 16 that I never felt. I was starting to feel all these, and I was starting to get more tired each day, and I was starting to really struggle, and I was actually getting more frustrated with myself, because at the time I didn't know it was my valve that was leaking. So I was getting more frustrated, thinking, why am I getting unfitter the more stuff that I do? And then when I had the scans and different things and found out it was leaking again, and like you say, like all the effects I was feeling, like I was feeling them on a daily basis, and I really struggled with the tiredness. I struggled with the feeling lightheaded, and along with that, panic attacks came, and anxieties came that I never knew about, and sleepless nights came that I never had before. So there was a lot that changed for me.
Because what the book does, it puts an amazing context around it, because we all went through COVID, and what a weird thing to happen. I don't think any of us expect to see anything like this in our lifetime. It was in the history books, wasn't it, about these like weird things that come along. You all got to take precautions, but we all, I think most people have gone through some difficult times, and you've now in this book, I thought, really wrote well about it. The fact that you respect the fact that it was COVID and there was a lot of things going on in other people's lives, but you're also very clear and very good at putting in perspective with what was really happening to you, and it was difficult. So let me go into Kieran's question. So Kieran Hensley, how did you cope with what happened to you? I can only imagine what kind of struggles you had. It's in the book. So talk me through the three things. You've already mentioned about coming to terms that the playing career would have to be over, COVID, and the thought of the operation, and what happened next.
So like with all of that was going on, it all felt as though it was like one big storm above me head, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So when I kind of come out of that kind of fog of it all, I knew I had to break it down. I knew I had to kind of deal with one subject at a time. So when I had the operation and the stuff that went on and what doctors told me for that operation, like as I say, they are in the book, and there's a lot of in-depth stuff of what the doctors did tell me, and as I say, it's stuff that it's hard to believe that it was actually said to me, but you do also have to take into consideration, like it's scary, but it's real life. Like this is what happens to people, like if they do pick up anything serious in their life, and this is what can happen. But it was when I come out of the operation, it was quite difficult, obviously through COVID, so I didn't have family by the side of my hospital bed. I didn't have anybody in the hospital other than doctors. I was a FaceTime away on an iPad from family and friends, and I was in hospital for 4 weeks. So 4 weeks of my life of trying to like get up and walk by myself every day. Like yes, the hospital were helping with that, but you don't have the support of your family. Like I'm talking to my mum on FaceTime as I'm walking up and down a corridor, and it's a totally different feeling if I have my mum's arm to hold on to walk up and down with, and you have her there as support. So like you say, there was so much more to it that I actually never really took into consideration. And it was after that, once I come out of hospital after 4 weeks, I kind of learned, it probably took me a year or two after to learn that I was over hospitalised, that everything was a touch of a button away. I had doctors at my beck and call whenever I needed them, and the fact that I didn't have that in me surrounding when I got home to Newport, I didn't know how to take that. So like I started to develop where I'd have a panic attack laying in bed, and I'd be shaking, shivering, I'd be curled in a ball, I'd be getting sick over the side of my bed, and I'm calling an ambulance because I think I'm having a heart attack here. And then the ambulance comes, and then my body starts relaxing because I've got that support of a medical professional coming to look after me. And again, how I kind of like dealt with it all was, okay, look, I need to differentiate what's a panic attack, what's not, and I had to just start understanding myself. I had to understand what a trigger was, I never even knew what a trigger was. I had to understand what a panic attack was. I had to understand that my blood thinning medication, the levels of my blood, I can't really control that. I can only just take what the doctors tell me to take, rather than me feeling as though I could control it. So I just started to understand a lot more that I have to start taking control of what I can control. Anything I can't control, I need to stop worrying about, because I tried to make my life perfect. I started to treat this valve like it is the main thing in my life, like nothing else matters. And I started to get obsessed with my own health. I started to get obsessed with needing this to be perfect, or what is this that I'm feeling in my neck, or what's this that my body doesn't feel quite right today. Or I was so hypersensitive on so many different things. And it was the club doctor, Daniel Vaughan, who then told me I needed to go do counselling. So again, you don't think you need counselling, you don't think you have to go anywhere near counselling. Like, there's nothing wrong with me, like I'm fine, why do I need to do it? But I ended up, and I went and had counselling, and with the counselling it just made me realise a lot that there was a lot of hidden stuff inside me that I didn't really know. And again, when you're in football, you get so concentrated on everything's for the team. When you do an interview, the team were done so well today, you got man of the match, but the team were great, like everything was team. You'd never speak about yourself. So the time that I actually had to speak about myself, I struggled. I didn't know how to speak about myself. I didn't know if I should be proud, if I should say these things, because when you're in football, you don't want to seem as though you're the big time Charlie, as people call it, that you're only just about yourself. Like, so when I'm sitting there talking about my own self and my emotions and my feelings, I would just burst into tears, and I never knew why. So then, as you say, I done more in my counselling, and I broke down the open heart surgery to kind of accept that it is actually a massive thing, that I'm okay to kind of feel on edge about things, that I'm going through certain things, and just to accept that, you know what, like, don't be so hard on yourself. If you feel anxious about something, you have every right to feel anxious, but accept it, don't fight against it. Again, I just found a massive acceptance in the situation that I'm in now, because I was fighting against it, going, yeah, but when I played and I was fit and strong, I didn't feel this way. Or when I was 16, I dealt with it this way. They said, but you're 27 now. How you dealt with it at 16 is going to be different to how you deal with it at 27, or how you deal with things later in life. Or every situation is different. Like, no one thing is the same. And in my mind, it was all the same. Well, it's the same operation. Why am I acting differently? Like, I just could never understand that, and I was being really hard on myself.
Part of it is because first time around you were 16 and you don't think about those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand any of it, and all these things that were going on. And like I say, it's just once I broke down the operation, then I was able to accept that a little bit more. Then the actual retirement, I had to break that down, and that was probably one of the most difficult things to break down, because football, when it becomes your life, especially after what happened at 16, it became even more my life. It was something that I struggled with a hell of a lot, to try and think I can never do this again. And that was always my main distraction through life, to get past the first open heart surgery, that football was me everything, and I can't go out to affect the game. If the lads are out there playing, I can't do anything to help. I felt helpless about everything. But the more that I just kind of worked on myself, and it's easier said than done, but the more I just kind of learned that the bigger perspective of things, or the bigger picture of things, is that regardless of like the situation that I went through, I had to start realising that everybody's feelings are the same. Everybody's the feeling. So somebody who's gone through one thing isn't the same as going through open heart surgery, but I guarantee we both felt the same emotion, so why can't we speak? And the more that I start speaking, and the more that I start to realise that people do understand panic attacks, people do know what anxiety is, or health anxiety is about. Am I the only one having these worries, or am I the only one having these aches and pains? Like, in my mind, I kept saying, I wish you could live a day in my body. I wish I could just know what it's like to feel normal, but unless you speak to that person can feel exactly the same way. And I started to gauge that and understand that more, and like I say, it just kind of, it was like a light bulb moment for myself to kind of just go, I just feel as though the grander scheme of things, of everything that went on for me, focus on what I can control. And the things that I can control is the fact of going, do you know what, I can keep putting one foot in front of the other, I can keep pushing forward and pushing forward. But the things I can't control is I can't go back in time to be a footballer again. I can't go and be a captain in Newport anymore. I can't go back and say I wish I didn't have the open heart surgery. I can't go back and say I don't want to take blood thinners. So why do I need to sit and worry about it? Why not just go, that's happened, and accept that it's happened, and this is the situation it's put me in, so why not make the best of the situation I'm in now than look back and be sad about it?
Yeah, I mean, you've spoken really honestly about mental health. Do you think one of the things that you kind of maybe struggle with, because obviously during COVID, you're just saying now, like you had to speak to your family over the phone. I mean, that must just have been awful to go through what you went through and not really being able to have anybody with you. So, but then there's the other thing as well. When you're a footballer, you've got like a routine, and once that's taken away from you, that must be really difficult, because you're part of a club, you're part of a team, you're part of a. So that must have been really difficult for you to cope with as well.
Yeah, I think the routine was probably one of the main things that really struggled. Because I remember even when Kevin Ellison played at Newport, he used to turn around and say to me, it's crazy when a footballer comes out of routine, because he said it's like you're part of the army, it's like you're a soldier, but you just don't get shot at. That's what a football player is, because you're stuck with every last routine. You're stuck with what time you wake up, what time you go to sleep, what you have for breakfast, when you're training, when you're going to the gym, when you're stretching, when you're not, what things you need. Like, there's so much that is regimented into you that to me is normal life. It even got to the stage where it's like, and I know it'll sound funny, but it even gets to the stage where I was always thinking some days after, like when you're in football, you train, you have a shower, you get changed, you go home. But I never trained through a whole day, or I'm not a footballer anymore, so when do I shower? Like, you know, like those kind of thoughts. And I know it sounds funny and extreme, but like they're the kind of things where you're like, everything is so laid out for you, and you're so used to it on a routine, on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. You know what your year is going to be from the end of June when pre-season starts till the beginning of May when the season finishes. You know your every day, and that's something where you get so used to that once I come away from that, my mental state was so far fetched and all over the place that I was trying to stick to a footballer's routine that wasn't working, because that wasn't it. But what I did learn was keeping some sort of routine is what was bringing me back slowly, like not giving up on it, because I just began by Wayne Hatswell and Flinney at the time. They allowed me back into training, so I still had a year left in my deal, so I'd go back into training, like I'm not trained, but I'd go in each morning. And then I got a staff tracksuit, so then I'm part of the staff. So then he said, okay, why don't you sit in with the analyst for a little while? Okay, do you want to come out onto the pitch? Why don't you come in? Right, I'll see you tomorrow. So then every day, without me even thinking, like it was a routine. I was getting up in the morning, I was going into football, I was coming home again, and then I'd go straight into bed, and that's where the other struggle started. But then I would do the same again, and then it would come to a match day, and instead of, like, I'd travel on away days, and this is how I knew that my mental state was struggling. I couldn't go to a local food shop, I couldn't go and do anything because I thought COVID is out there, it's going to get me. But I can go into training every single day with 25 different lads and not worry about COVID.
But it's comfort zones, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's where you feel the very best. Again, I think reading the book, the way I mildly equated that to was, you go to school from an early age, and then you might go to college, which I did, and then I went to university, and then suddenly after that, it's I finished university. It's September 1997. What do I do? Because I'm not getting up and going to some sort of learning institution, and that really mildly threw me. Yeah. So I can't imagine what it's like when you've been in that system as a footballer and going through that. It's just I can see why you went through. Yeah,
like like you say, it's just a massive change in your life, and I almost probably didn't want to accept that I'm not a footballer anymore, because I kept coming in the same time as the lads. I'd leave with the lads, and then, as you say, as the years passed, I just started to gain that routine. But one thing never gave up on the hope of still being part of football, because I'd go to match days, but I'd lay in the change room on a physio bed with my headphones in, because I couldn't watch a game of football, because I thought, I can't watch it. And then the lads would come in, they'd say if they won, lost or draw, and I'm checking the score on my phone. Now the game is happening literally 20 metres away from me out in a stadium. I couldn't be part of an atmosphere. If the atmosphere lifted, I felt my anxiety building, because I thought, I can't be part of this. I want to be out there, I want to be helping them win a game. And I like I say, I just never gave up on the thought of going, right, I'm gonna go again, because there was a single point I was gonna stop coming to football. I was gonna move home to Ireland. It was when they went to Wembley for the second time against Morecambe, when they played Forest Green in the second leg of the playoffs. I remember I went to the game, and going to the game, they conceded 2 in the first 5 minutes of the game. The game went 2 each, and I remember I got up out of my seat. I walked into the change room. I put my headphones in, and I thought, I can't watch this, because I can't do anything to help this. And then I went onto the team bus. I remember I watched it on the little small screen on the team bus, and I thought, I can't see this. And then when they win, you go in and celebrate. But I remember I went home with the emotion of saying, and I said it to my mum, I goes, I'm not going to football anymore. She goes, they're going to Wembley. I goes, no, I'm not going to football anymore. I said, I can't handle it. I said, my chest can't handle it. I'm panicking all the time. I said, I can't do it. And the fact that I just thought, right, well, I'm not giving up on it, and I went again, that kind of started giving me that bit more of a confidence. Like I said, everything came down to confidence. It was I just got shot of every last bit of confidence from the operation, and I did have panic attacks. Like, I had panic attacks on wondering, if I go asleep, am I going to wake up? I was having anxiety attacks of thinking, oh, well, if I walk up these flight of stairs, like, I can't do that again. And I'd start, like, I couldn't breathe. And then again, I was getting told, like, you've got PTSD, you've got, like, trauma that's just lingering over you. And I don't know any of these things. I never understood any of these things. And the fact that when you're just having to kind of cipher through them all bit by bit and understand it and just accept it, like, that was like the biggest turning point of it all, was just saying, I'm going to accept it. And you know what, they told me, it's not going to be an overnight fix, Mark. You're not going to be okay within the next day just because you've done a breathing exercise, but you have to just keep pursuing it and make it a constant in your life, and make it a consistency that it turns into a habit, and then that habit turns into good habits, to think, this is what suits me. And I realised that to myself, that what gets me back to me is do what suits me, make myself happy, and then everything else falls back into place. Sometimes you have to show a small bit of selfishness to get yourself in the right way to then be able to help others, rather than, I'm always someone who, like, again, because of the book and everything that I've done, I want to help people. I want to help others that go through struggles in football and even on the day-to-day life. I want to be there for people, because I feel as though they're all so connected. Like, that the book that I've written is not just a football book, it's a book for everybody. And I had to show some sort of selfishness through all my mental struggles, to then show the outcome of just, you know what, take that time to yourself to then constantly just plod along with it and just keep believing in it, because you will get setbacks along the way. But if you keep believing in it, that mental side will start to, like, slowly move. And like, and even still to this day, and I don't hide behind it, I still have struggles. There's days where I feel as though my chest is starting to cave in. There's days where I'll sit panicky because I'm in a really busy area and I can't really feel the valve beating and all these different things. Like, I'll still always have that, but I just learned that it's not going to consume me anymore. Like, I accept that it's happening, and I go, right, I probably have to sit down for a couple of minutes, or I'll vocalise it to somebody and say, look, I'm feeling just a bit off today. And keeping that openness about it is what kind of makes you feel more relaxed, that you don't have to hide it from people.
The bit I took out from that, from what you just said there, is something that I've learned in that, watching lots of different things. YouTube's an amazing thing, isn't it, sometimes? And you've got to fill your own cup up first. If you're not well, if you're not functioning right, how can you expect to help anybody else? So I guess the book is part of that, which I think Stephen had a question on.
Yeah, I was just going to, I think you might have already answered it, really, is what would you like people to take away from the book? What are the main things? I think you've already, obviously you've talking about acceptance, self-improvement, not giving in, I think, but is there anything else in particular you'd like people to take away from the book? I
just like people to take away the fact of, like, we all have, or we're all part of a journey that we've all had in our lives, and the part that I want people to take away is that it's just never give up hope on that, or never stop believing in that. Like, through a setback or through certain things that may or may not happen in your life, there's always a way around it. There's always a way back. You might have to come back to go forward again, but mine has always been that I wanted to be a footballer, and that was my niche. I wanted to be a footballer, so open heart surgery, ACLs, microfractures, a second open heart surgery, nothing was going to stop me. Like, and I've always believed in that every bit of adversity along the way, I used it as a strength. I used it as a positive. That, well, if I come back from open heart surgery, when I done me cruciate ligament, well, if I can get back from open heart surgery, I can get back from this. So the open heart surgery automatically became a positive. So through any negative time that you've had, if you find that silver lining, as people always say, you find that small positive to it that you can use in a different form of adversity to go, well, I was in this situation before, and you know what, I bounced back from it, so if I can come back from that, I'll definitely come back from this. And then all of a sudden you're already putting a positive spin on something that may be happening. And that's just how I've always seen it, that through all the tough times that I've had, I've tried to put that positive spin on it, to know that it gives me the confidence in myself to go, I can do this. And then that's what I want to show other people through the book, that, do you know what, through my bad times or through my tough times, I still try to create some sort of success for myself, even till this day, that I still try and just keep going along with things and keep progressing myself. That, yeah, I will still have struggles, but I don't live in the struggles. I still just keep going along with it. But you know what, I accept them and I'm happy with them. So whatever struggles you do find, don't let it hold you back, because if it's something that you really want, you can achieve it.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about the reaction. How has the reaction been from, obviously, like, people you know, fellow and ex-pros? How have you found the reaction?
I found the reaction overwhelming, to be honest, like, better than I could have expected. Like, it was something where, like you say, when you're putting your life out there, it's a scary thing. Like, and it's a scary thing if you're just sitting down with a friend to speak about your life, let alone that I'm putting it out there for anybody and everybody to read. But that's the reason I've done it, because I want anybody or everybody to read it. Like, from teammates to other people have had jokes and laughs saying, how come you've not mentioned me? Or why did you say this about me? Like, we all joke and laugh about it. But it's something where I've had great support from close friends, from friends in football and family and everybody. But it's the comments that I'm getting from people that aren't really football people that are meaning a lot to me just as much, because I'm thinking, well, if I'm able to help or change or show you a different perspective or give you a better outlook, that you might see something more difficult or you might struggle with the same thing I struggle with, and to see what I'm doing might give you a little bit of a kind of confidence boost to think, well, if he can do it, so can I. And that's the outlook that I want people to have, is that I'm a lad who came away to play football. I've had all these things thrown at me, and I'm still able to try and keep being positive or progress about it. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be positive, but I'm looking at it saying, well, if he can do it, so can I. And that's the output that I want to give to people.
A couple of people that you know well, James Robury, obviously last year he has a pacemaker fitted, and former defender Fraser Franks, who obviously you played with a couple of weeks ago, similar to you, open heart surgery. What advice have you given them, because they're going through very similar things to what you've been through?
Yeah, like obviously James Roby was still the manager at the time at Newport, and he was letting me in on knowing that this was all happening, and how, like, they were two different procedures, but obviously for the heart. But I was also telling him, I was like, look, I said, this is something where from the outside, people hearing when it's your heart, they think it's life or death. I think every operation is life or death, because anything can happen. So I try and just say, you just have to take it for what it is. You're dealing with heart specialists, you're dealing with people who know exactly what they're talking about, and trying to just give him the confidence, like I say, be the example, and try and be that example of going, well, look at me, I'm trying to be okay, and I'm just plodding along with things, so you can do exactly the same. Like, you know, that kind of lead by example kind of thing. And Fraser Franks is someone who had open heart surgery 2 weeks ago, and I made sure I was on the phone to him before he went down for the operation. I phoned him the night he got admitted into hospital. Like, even weeks before that, we were on the phone talking about it. The night he got admitted into hospital, I was on the phone to him making sure he was okay. Like, I know the thoughts that go through your head when you're sitting there in a hospital bed waiting to be wheeled down. I woke up at 4:30, 5 o'clock the next morning to send him a text to make sure he's okay before he goes down. And then through the whole time on his recovery, even he got released out of hospital yesterday, but even through all of his time's recovery, I made sure I reached out to his mum to make sure she's okay, because I know what it feels towards families, because I know what my mum went through, and I know what his wife might have gone through. I know what his brother was going through, but I needed to know that he was going to be okay, because I know how much that I've spoken to him along the way. And as you say, like he is someone that I feel as though it was meant to be, that like I had this now for him to be able to help him, and I can hopefully shed some light on blood thinners that he needs to ask questions about. How long does it take for your chest to heal? All these things that he can look at me and go, well, he's got back now. And I told him it's never going to be an overnight fix, and I give him the realities of it. I don't tell him like, oh, you're going to be fine, because yeah, you will be fine, but I give him the reality of going, look, your chest is going to be a bit painful, your body's not going to be able to do what you wanted it to do just yet. Don't worry about your blood thinners, they get better. Like all these things that the hospitals don't really tell you. They just tell you like obviously the harsh realities of things, but they don't tell you the what do you do once you leave hospital. And because I can be that insight for him, I've made sure that I've just stayed in close touch with him. And like I say, that's what I want it to be, because how rare is it that you're going to get two professional footballers that have played in the same team that have had exactly the same operation. So like you say, for us, for if I was in his position and he had the operation before me, I would want that from him, to be able to have somebody to ask questions to. So that's the person I want to be.
Yeah, as I just mentioned, since your retirement, you've moved into, well, our area. You've gone into media. You've done co-commentary for, firstly, I believe it was iFollow in the COVID days with Charlie Brown, and then you've done stuff with the BBC. Do you enjoy doing co-commentary?
Do you know what? I really love it. It is something where, because of the iFollow, I just felt as though I'm going to give it a go, because I was at that moment where my dad had that conversation with me saying, Mark, he said, you're in a part of your life now, he said, say yes to everything. He said, because you don't know what you're going to like or what you won't like. But he said, if you don't like it once, well, then you never know. He said, but if you don't try it, he said, you'll definitely never know. So I just said yes to the co-commentary, and as I said, I started to really enjoy it. And then when the season started, the following season, and the iFollow wasn't really needed as much because fans were back in the stadium, I remember BBC got in touch and said, Mark, do you fancy doing 1 or 2 games? And I thought, this would be brilliant, yeah. And then, as I say, I've just started really enjoying it, and it's just something where I've just felt as though it's gotten better and better, and it's looking at a game in a different aspect. Like, I can't really be too biased over the radio, and I can't really swear as much as I would when I'm on the sideline. But it is something where I remember the first time I done BBC, but I remember, I think it was Rob Phillips at the time was doing the speaking, and I remember I was just so focused on the game, watching the game. The line went silent where I was meant to kind of chip in with saying something, and I just completely blanked and didn't say anything. And he kind of nudged me, but he carried on speaking. He goes, "You're gonna have to talk." And I was like, "Oh," because I was so focused on the game where I just thought, right. So now when I do it, I'm a bit more relaxed about it. I can kind of bring my personality out a little bit more and have a bit more of fun with it and enjoy it. And that's what I have been doing. I love every minute of it.
It gets easier, doesn't it? Because when you're talking, you can't talk. So I can't send a message to Stephen Nick because I'm too busy talking to you. So it becomes a lot of eye contact, doesn't it? That's really weird for blokes. It's like, I find myself, I've caught myself doing it today. I'm winking at Stephen to say, you're next for the questions. Luke, you're next for the questions. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's strange. Like you say, it's something where you're kind of having to listen to what Rob would be saying or whoever I'm doing the co-commentary with. You also have to watch the game of what's happening, but you also have to remember that I'm live online, that I can't just start shouting out things for the sake of saying it. So there's all these things going on. But again, like I say, the more I got confident with it, the more I start enjoying it more, and the more that my own personality, you can have a joke and a laugh, and it's like you're just sitting having a conversation. But as you say, it's something that I've really enjoyed without thinking I was going to enjoy.
Is this something you want to do more?
I would love. I probably would love doing more of it.
Stephen's shaking his boots right now because he's a co-commentator for the highlights
Funnily
package.
enough, yes, I am. Yeah.
No, it is something that I always look at and say I'd love to do more, because, as I said, I enjoy football. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy the tactics side of it. I enjoy watching the harsh realities of football. I enjoy every last aspect of it. But again, it's something where if that's along the line for myself somewhere down the line, then great. If I get given an opportunity, or if somebody hears something that they enjoy me doing, great. But again, I think I'm at a stage in my life now where whatever comes my way. I'm not somebody who's saying this is what I have to be in 10 years time, because again, I was like that with football. Maybe in 4 years time I might play in the Prem. Well, I never really had 4 years because of what can happen within the space of a year. So I look at it now and say, whatever's in front of me right now, I'm going to just keep pushing with, just like the book and just like me role at Newport. I can just keep pushing with things, and then whatever follows these little things that I'm doing at the moment, well then that I'll deal with that when it comes.
I believe you've been going on a course for public speaking.
Yeah, I think a year and a half after the operation, I went on a course for public speaking, and it was something that it took an interest in me, because I felt as though if I'm wanting to express my life story a lot more, or if I'm going to be out talking about my life a little bit more, I want to know, like, what is the story behind it, or how do I articulate it, how do I get it across that people can relate to me, rather than I can just talk 16 years of my life and then say that's it. People can sit there and go, well, that was okay, but I wanted to be able to be relatable to people. I want people to be able to actually take something from my life that might impact theirs or help theirs. And again, like, I went on the course, loved every minute of it, and it was just something where doing certain evenings, like, I've done talks with young academy kids, I've done talks with colleges and different things about my life and about adversity. Really, it's about, like, the overcoming of adversity, or facing it head on, or like how your life can be for just overcoming it and not giving up. Like, that's something that I'm a big believer in, just not giving up hope on better days through all bad days and different things. So it is something that going forward, it is something that I want to enjoy and try and do a lot more of.
We have another listener question here from David Went, who asks, with your role at the club at the moment, would you be looking at taking on coaching badges and scouting for the club?
If it is something that comes along, then potentially that will be a course of action for that. But I feel as though with the role that I'm in at the moment, and a certain kind of player care / mentor type role, I think it's vital sometimes nowadays is that the care that I had from certain players and older teammates and different things, and when you feel as though you've got that person or people who care about you in a club, it makes you want to play for the club more. It makes you want to do the best for the club you're at. And I want to show that care, like, because I've seen the both sides of football where I've been neglected, and it makes you go completely south, and it makes you throw you off your whole, like, kind of career, to now all of a sudden I've been at clubs where when you feel wanted and you feel loved, you want to play, and you do play your best because you feel settled. So, like I say, I feel as though the role that I do, I'm quite happy doing, because I've experienced all sides of football, and I've experienced majority of stuff in life that, as you say, has kind of put me in good stead for a role like this, where I can actually sit and talk to people on a level if they do feel certain ways, and to be there to help. So, as I say, that I'm never saying it won't ever happen to try and probably go down a coaching route and do different things, but I think where I'm at right now, it's doing me quite well.
I like that, because in the book I got a kind of impression that was one of the areas that you would say no to. So the door isn't closed on that then?
No, like the door isn't closed on any avenue really, because I do look at it in a sense where, again, I'll always go back to saying in 10 years time I don't know what's going to be happening, in 5 years time I don't, but how I am going and the routes that I am going down and the paths that I am taking, potentially it isn't the route that I actually am going to take, but I'll never say no to things that I don't know it could pop up sometime, and I could end up taking it and go, actually I really enjoy this. So, like I say, there's different aspects and different things, but where I'm at right now, I could say that I'm comfortable, I'm happy, and I enjoy doing what I'm doing, because helping a player and seeing them kind of flourish from it. And I'm not saying it's only solely down to me, but if I can contribute to that and know that they are getting the best kind of care and they are enjoying their time at Newport, just like I've seen loads of people enjoy their time at Newport, if I know they've enjoyed it, well then you make sure they enjoy it to the best that they can. And that's kind of where I'm at.
It feels that you're at a really cool and interesting stage of your life right now, because you've had all this systematic football, and now you've got this immense freedom.
Yeah, and it does feel like that. It does feel like there is that bit of freedom to kind of say, okay, I can try a bit of this and I can do a little bit of that, and there's all different things that I can try, but at the same time, like, football is still at the centre of it all, because football is still me love. But I never once thought I'd be bringing out a book. I never once thought I would stand up in front of an assembly full of kids in a college and do a talk. I never thought I'd be speaking on a radio to do co-commentary. I never thought I'd be sitting doing interviews on TV. Like, I never thought these things. But the fact that, like, I've built that confidence back up, and like I said, I had to come away from it all for a year, maybe 2 years, and I've done little interviews in those 1 or 2 years and a couple of podcasts and different things, but in that 1 or 2 years, they were all like kind of just going, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm at. But I think now, like you say, I'm actually enjoying the journey that I'm on. I'm enjoying everything that's happening at the moment, and like I say, I hope it keeps continuing. But at the same time, I'm just in that mode of, do you know what, like, certain things are coming together, but I'm not going to look too far ahead, because as I said, by next week something else could be different, something else may happen. So I'm just kind of living in that moment for it now.
The book is already up there. We've already put links to it. We'll keep doing that as well for you. Can I just say the book is beautifully balanced in terms of the fact that I love that there's the history in there. It doesn't go too deep into the growing up bit, which I kind of really value. I like you just getting straight into it. There's obviously the raw honesty about what's happened to you, good and bad. There's oodles in there for County fans.
Yeah.
So this above and beyond for me was the Newport County book as well, and I appreciated that one. And yeah, just the what happened next, and there's bits in there that we haven't even covered in the probably 120 minutes that we've just spent together, and thank you for that today as well. So it's a brilliant read, and thank you very much for doing it.
No, like, honestly, thanks very much, and the fact that people can take the time out, and like, it makes me feel proud that people take the time out to read my life, and to get that kind of feedback, or to get that kind of look at it, it makes me feel proud of my life that little bit more, and it makes me feel, do you know what, it was all worthwhile. Like, even the ups, the downs, the really down times to the great times, it makes it feel worthwhile for me, that, like, to an extent, and I know it sounds crazy to say, but I'm glad I've gone through it, that I can release something like this that potentially could help somebody's life, that could potentially give somebody that little bit edge they're looking for, that little bit of comfort to think, well, if he's gone through that, I feel those exact same things, and look how well he's doing. Do you know what? Everything's going to be okay. Like, if my book can bring any of that, and like I say, it's not just a football book, it's something that I want everybody to take an opportunity to read, and if you like it, great, and like, more the merrier, and if you don't like it, well, do you know what, maybe it's not for you, but it's something where I want people to have that chance of reading it to then see what they can take away from it.
I can't see any Newport County fan not enjoying it.
Well, I hope not.
And there's nothing there for Derby fans and everybody else that you talk about. I think more than ever it's right to end on the listener question, more than ever that we've ever done this. So here's Dan Halpins. If you had one single piece of advice for a young up and coming player just about to start their career in football, what would it be?
I'd say the one bit of advice I'd give to an up and coming player just starting their career would be, like, I have all the cliche answers of work hard. I have all those answers of saying, like, just listen to your managers and keep working hard. But I would also say, believe in yourself. From an early age, just have that belief in yourself, because it's easy to come away from that belief if you see someone who might be slightly better than you, if you see someone who's working hard than you. If you have that belief and football is truly what you want, then don't give up on that hope. Like if you're starting your career, through any setbacks along the way, always just have that belief and keep the belief that football's for me. I'm going to get my head down, I'm going to work hard, and I will be a footballer. Like, that belief of willing yourself that you're going to be a footballer, nobody can break and nobody can beat.
There you go. Mark O Brien, club legend, author, and no public speaker. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me.